Well, we're back with another idea for a quilt block. We have gone ahead and cut some strips of fabrics that we liked, coordinating fabrics, and we need 3. So we need 2 colored prints, and this is gonna be a Christmas one for us, so red and green. And then, well, you can do it any color, but this particular one is gonna be red and green. Then we need a white, but I don't wanna do a white. I'm gonna use this gray. And this is all from that line On Dasher by Moda. So we are using this line, and this is one of the fabrics in that line that I'm gonna use as my white. So let me take you down to the table to show you exactly what we're gonna do. So here we are with our strips, and we've kind of laid them out how we want them. I want 2 of the red for my strip for this one, but you're gonna have the one strip and then the different color ones, and then the white or the gray in my case in the middle. So you're gonna do a print, a background like a gray or a white or whatever, and then another print, gray or black, gray or white or whatever your background is, and then the same print as this first print. So that's how I'm doing mine, and I'm gonna take them, I'm going to open them up, and then I'm going to sew them right sides together all the way down this strip. So I'm just gonna sew a 1/4 inch down this entire side, and I'm gonna do this until all of my pieces are sewn together. So I've got right sides together. I'm gonna sew a 1/4 inch. I'm gonna keep going with this, just like I will with the whole way down the strip. I'm gonna do the same thing with each of these, keeping them in the order that I've just laid them out. And then I'll come back and show you the next step. We now have our strips sewn together into one big piece. We've ironed it over here on the other side of the table. I've ironed them all flat. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line this piece up on any line on this ruler, just so that I can know it's straight. And then I'm gonna take a ruler that's at least longer, a little bit longer than this set is, and I'm gonna keep it lined up on this line so I know it's straight, and I'm gonna cut anything off that is outside of a selvage. Like this is selvage here, I want this gone. So I'll take this, cut that off, discard it, and then I'm going to take this down to the table here, to the ruler on the cutting mat. And I'm going to make sure it's lined up straight, and I'm going to cut this section into 10.5 inch blocks. So I'm cutting this way 10.5, and then this is already 10.5. So now I've got a 10.5 inch block, and I'm going to do that for all of these, for this whole strip. And let's see how many we end up with. There's our second. There's our third. Oh, there's our third. Here's our fourth and final from this strip set. And then what we'll do is we'll have a little piece left over outside of it that we don't need as well. So now we've got our blocks made like this, and you get 1, 2, 3, 4 from each strip set. So now I'm going to go and do the same thing with the extra strips that I had cut. So now I have cut my strips into 10.5 inch squares. And this was 2 sets of strips. So when I showed you how to do one, I just did the same thing over again. I did it twice. So I started with 4 strips of red, 4 strips of gray, and 2 strips of green. And then I sewed them like this, cut them into 10.5 segments, and now I have 8 of these. So I'm gonna take my first one, and I know it measures 10.5 square because I've already checked that. So I'm gonna lay it like this. And you can do more than one at a time if you're comfortable doing that, which is what I'll probably do in a minute. But I'm gonna start off by showing you this. I'm gonna take the ruler and I'm gonna go from one corner to the other, And I'm going to take my cutter and I'm going to cut it diagonally across. Carefully lift my ruler so it doesn't adjust my fabrics on the table. And then I'm going to hold the ruler this direction and hold it to corner again. And I'm going to cut this direction. So now what you have is this. And when you pull it apart, it looks like that. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this with all of these blocks here. What we started with was this block. Then we cut it up like that. So you're going to end up with half pieces like this and half pieces that look like this. So we'll put them in stacks of alike pieces. So all of my small triangle point green and all my big stripe green are in separate stacks. Then we can build from there different blocks. So let me show you one way we've put it together, which is this way, which is just these 4 segments that we already had just put together like that. So when you put them together, it makes this block. Then you take this block and you could make the whole table runner just like that. Or you could put them together backwards and put them like this. Where the green X is in the middle and the other pieces are pointing out. And it looks like that. And you could do the whole table runner like this. Or you could do this. This is what I'm doing. You could take it like this, and then you could put these pieces beside it like that and keep that going. And this is how I'm going to sew mine together. So I'm going to sew them like this and then come back and show you what it looks like. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to start with this first blocks over here. So I'm going to take this block and this block, and I'm going to sew them right sides together down this line, this side right here. I'm going to sew them together, make one block, then I'll put it back like that, and that'll be sewn together. I'll do the same thing with these 2 blocks, the same thing with these 2 blocks, the same with these 2 blocks, and then I'll start putting these blocks together, and then put the top to the bottom to make one big block like this. So when I get this block done and this block done, I'll come back and I'll show you what I'm talking about with the rest of it. Okay, so this is how it was before you cut it. Then you cut it like this. You end up with 2 pieces that look like this and 2 pieces that look like this. So you put those in separate piles, all of these together, all of these together, and then we're going to take them 2 at a time. So we're going to take them and sew one of each together, and we're going to sew them to look like this. So see, you've got one with the big green and one with the little green. So you sew these 2 pieces together down that seam at 1/4 inch, and you come up with this piece. Now when you come up with this piece, you'll have 4 of them to make a block. So one of the blocks was take the little green piece and put it in the middle, and it looked like that. The other block was to take the little green piece and put it on the outside, and it looked like that. So we're going to sew alternating together. We're going to sew the first 4 sets to look like this, and then the next 4 blocks we make, we're going to sew them the opposite, where the green is little green pieces on the outside. So let's sew these. We're going to take these 2 up here, right sides together, and sew down that seam, down that side at 1/4 inch. When we get done with that, we're going to go over and iron it open. And we've got this piece. So we're going to do the same with these to make them look like that. Then we're gonna iron it open. And we'll have what looks like that. Then we'll take this piece and line it up here. We'll start with this middle. You want to line those seams up in the middle, pin them, then line these pieces up, and then line this side up. Then we'll take this to the sewing machine and sew all the way down this seam right here. This long seam is what we're going to sew on. We'll take those pins out as we go along. When we get to the end, we'll clip our thread. We'll take this over to the ironing table and iron that big seam open. Iron it flat. And what we end up with is this right here. So this was the block we just sewed, which was this right here. Now we're going to flip it. And we're going to sew these pieces together just like we did before. These two pieces will always be sewn like that. But now we're going to flip them to put the green on the outside. So it's going to look like this, because you want your X in the middle. So now we're going to sew it together like this. Same way we did this one, we'll sew these 4 blocks together. No matter how you end up putting yours together, whether you put them all looking like this, or whether you put them all looking like this, or whether you do this one, this one, this one, alternating them back and forth, either way you do it, any way you do it, you're still going to start with one of each of these, and you're going to sew them together like that. So if it's easier for you to take all of these pieces in the stacks like I showed you, and just take the first one off of each stack, line them up like that, put them right sides together, sew them together down that long side so that you end up with this block. That's what I'm doing. That's what's easiest for me. I'm taking all of these that are left in these stacks and sewing them like this, and then I can put my blocks together like this. So I've cut all my blocks now, sewn them together. I'm ironing them open, and once I get this step done, we'll start putting them back together. So now they're all ironed flat. We'll move this back over here where it belongs. We've got our blocks, and at this point we can put them together like we said before, either the green points in or the green points out. So I'm going to do one more of each block, and that'll give me 2 that look like this and 2 that look like this. Then we're going to put them together into the table runner. Now we've got 2 blocks like this and 2 like this. I'm going to start with this block, and then I am going to take this block and sew it to this side. So I'm going to put them right sides together, line up the center seam, roll it up till I get to the top, and I'm going to pin that. Then I'm going to pin the sides. And I'm going to pin this side. You don't have to pin them all if you don't want to pin them all. I do, just for extra measure of making sure it's lined up as I go along. Sew it down that seam and take your pins out as you go along. that thread. Then when I open it up, it's gonna look like this. I'll iron it in just a minute, so I'm gonna leave that alone for right now. Then I'm gonna take this first one again with the small green center, and I'm gonna stitch it right here the same way as I did that other one. I'm gonna line those center seams up, pin that, pin each side, and then sew down this seam. Now I've got 3 of the 4 blocks sewn together. I'll take the last one and do the same thing. Line it up here, flip it over right sides together, and then I'm going to line this up the same way. Take my center seam, line it up, pin it, pin my sides. Again, you don't have to pin if you don't want to pin, but I am a fan of pinning when it gets to this big of a block. Sew down this seam. Again, I'm taking those pins out as I go along. Then I get done, clip that thread, then I open it up, and I've got my table runner. So all I have to do now is iron it, and this is my table runner. And again, you can put it together however you want. You can put them all together like this, you can put them all together the other way, whatever you like better. Let's iron it and see what it looks like now. Now that I've got all my blocks sewn together, this is what it looks like. We're ready to put it on the quilt machine and use it as a table runner. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to make this table runner. Now, to get it on the long arm and be ready for the holiday. So until next time, you guys have a great afternoon and happy quilting.